Good morning, CLC. I invite you now, in this moment, to take a little journey with me to beyond the beyond. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take a nice, deep, cleansing breath in, breathing in the cool, radiant light that is life itself. And as you release the breath, release all that no longer serves you. Allow your spirit to radiate forth from you. Allow everything to just wash away in this moment. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take another nice, deep, cleansing breath in, breathing in the cool, calming light. And as you release the breath, allow your body to just relax in this moment. If you need to, go ahead and wiggle your fingers or toes, move your shoulders. Release everything that no longer serves you. And allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own, for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive.
I forgive.
Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose.
I choose.
I now center upon that one very special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept.
I accept.
Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release.
I release.
Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in this room or even on this planet anymore. I turn to that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in this room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
And I welcome you all here today, and those of you who are watching online. My name is Jennings. I work here, and we're starting a series this month. If you're new with us, every month we pretty much have a new talk series, unless they run 2 months. And today is on the idea, this month is on the idea of a lost paradise, a lost golden age, an ancestral memory that is said to run through every culture on earth, that there was a time when everything worked. There was a time when everybody got along. And there was a focus on creativity and expansion, kindness. What happened? What happened to that? Was it real? Or is it an illusion? If it's real, if it was ever real on this land, how can we recapture it? And I came up with this series for you for this month for several reasons. One was I rediscovered in my library a book by Richard Heinberg, which we have copies of, used copies. It's out of print. We've got you a couple of used copies over at the bookstore if you're interested, called Myths and Visions of Paradise, Memories of a Lost Golden Age. And he's writing sociologically, historically, how it happens that in different cultures this memory is held. And then he writes psychologically and spiritually on the matter as well, and what it can mean. And metaphorically, he's big on metaphor, and I'm big on metaphor, so I really enjoyed his book. It's been out about 30 years now. But that was part of what called to me. Part of what called to me, too, was that 55 years ago this summer, there were 2 music festivals back to back, one in upstate New York and one in Harlem, New York City. Have we lost our feed?
No,
Just the sound.
just the sound.
Just the sound, okay. I'll, I can with shadow puppets or, okay. Physical humor, I can entertain with physical humor. Would you like that? I fall down, stand up, something. Okay, we're back. So 55 years ago this summer, there were 2 music festivals back to back that were hopeful and generous in spirit and looking forward, and they captured the best of the musicians who existed at the time. As I was mentioning with Brian beforehand, some of these were people whose careers began at that time, and some were people who'd been around already for
20 or more years on the music scene, but it all kind of culminated that summer. And for those of us of my generation, it was a significant turning point, and it's kind of entered the realm of folklore and so on. But it's a metaphor. The Woodstock Nation is a metaphor. The whole body of music, popular music, as being an inspiration to future generations is a metaphor. It all says the same thing over and over in various ways, but in some ways notes are put together, they capture the imagination. So I thought we'd talk about this, and the specific theme is back to the garden. Back to the garden, as in the Joni Mitchell song. We must get back to the garden. What is the garden? Was the garden ever real? Well, of course, the garden that jumps to mind for a lot of people is the Garden of Eden, and that didn't turn out well. You know, there were a lot of problems to that, because that whole idea was that God, as we would say today, you had one job. You had one job. I asked you, you could run amok in this whole place, but I asked you to leave that tree alone. Leave that tree alone. And you didn't, did you? And so now you're going to have to pay the price, and you're going to have to pay the price for multiple generations, for all this time down the millennia. Well, it's a metaphor. And my feeling on this, and I'm not alone in this, but I hate it when people say that, because it's like I don't believe my own principles enough without telling you that I've got an army behind me. I believe this if nobody else believed this, but it happens other people do. Is that disobedience, quote unquote, was necessary for us to evolve. Otherwise, we'd have been automatons. We would have just been following the divine providence, you know, without question, without doubt, without pushback. And we are doubting people, and you have to be convinced through your skepticism of something, or it doesn't have value to you. You have to trust and verify. Faith is a wonderful thing. We were talking about this the other night in a group. Faith is a wonderful thing to have. Oh, I believe. I believe that all kinds of wonderful things are going to happen. But at some point in time, I'm going to need evidence. And so I need both things to be true. That on the one hand, there's a metaphysical realm in which mysterious and magical things happen. And on the other hand, those things show up in form. Those things show up on my desk in front of me where I can put them into play. So we needed the capacity to doubt. And it's said, without taking you painfully line by line through the second Genesis creation story, it's said in there that they discovered they were naked. This first alleged couple, metaphorical couple, who represent, it's said by Charles Fillmore, among others, represent the conscious and subconscious aspects of mind. Whoa, that's a whole rabbit hole right there to go down. Okay? But they discovered they were naked. What does that mean? All of a sudden they had the capacity for judgment. Their own judgment, not judgment on them, but their own, call it discretion. They had the ability to look around and say, so this is the garden. It's not all that. They looked at themselves. They looked at each other. And they discovered they were naked, and they were what? Ashamed. Why were they ashamed? Because they're judging themselves. They're judging themselves and finding themselves wanting. And this is what happens when you critically evaluate creation overly much, when that's like the single gear you operate in. You judge creation constantly, it all looks drab. It all kind of falls apart. It's not all that. You remember, and you know where this takes all of us. You're saying, well, this has nothing to do with me. This is a gazillion years ago, if it in fact ever happened, which it didn't. You understand that. It's a metaphor. But where this happens for all of us is in the movement from childhood into adolescence, into young adulthood. Because when we're little kids, we look around and it's all new, and it's all fresh, and it's all great. And every holiday and every birthday and everything, you know, the school year comes around, whatever. It's all like, whoa, it's rich and it's juicy. Until it isn't. Until after the passage of time, a different length of time for everyone, it starts to get old. It starts to get repetitious. It's this again. And by the time you hit a certain age, you're jaded. And others who are not jaded will come running to you and tell you, it's almost this, Halloween. And you're like, whatever. Because every year this time. And then you have these wonderful grown-up thoughts like, what is this going to cost me? How much sleep will I have to lose? And we wonder where the magic went in life. So, what are we taught to do in metaphysics? Well, it's tricky. Because, we want to look at things as an either or sometimes. We say, well, you abandon the intellect, run entirely on the emotions. No. Just dethrone the intellect for a little bit. The intellect, also in this case called the ego, thinks it runs the show. It thinks it is the show. It thinks it invented absolutely everything. And it's responsible for propping everything up. And from time to time, it has to be reminded of, in humility, it has to be reminded to sit down and be quiet. And let the feeling nature step in for a while. Of I can enjoy what's going on here without knowing how everything works, without having to explain it. Without, God, we explain things. And I am the worst. I am the worst at doing this. I will confess it to everyone. I love to explain things to myself. I'm explaining things right now, aren't I? So, well, there's this, and then over here you got that, But you gotta, if you do that, if you like to do that, or you have a job doing that, you do it, and then you sit down and you be quiet. And you listen. You listen to the magic of life. You listen to nature. And this is what David talked about a couple of weeks ago. And we were talking about all last month in the series on Thoreau and his meditations on Walden Pond, where he spent 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days, and his sense of how nature has a sensibility to it. It has a rhythm to it, it has pattern to it. If we would listen to nature, we would know more about ourselves and the healthy ways of being. So we look to nature for restoration of the emotional self. So when Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of this religious science or CSL teaching, looked at nature, one of the things that jumped out at him, and he was not the first by a long shot, what jumped out at him was a creative mechanism, a creative process that occurred through nature. He typified it as seed, soil, and plant. Seed, soil, and plant. If you're going to have a garden, so if we say we want to get back to the garden, you're going to have a garden, whether it's an ornamental garden of just pretty stuff, or it's like a vegetable garden that feeds the people. You're going to have seed, soil, and plant. Or you're going to have bulb, soil, and plant. You're going to have some kind of ideation of what it is you're wishing to create. The seed represents a mental equivalent, a mental and emotional equivalent. Seed of an idea. You hear that said, or germ of an idea, people will say. See? So, and the seed, if you plant the seed, what you reasonably expect is that the full mature plant will outpicture the seed. It will look more or less like the plant the seed came from that's advertised on the little packet of seeds, if that's how you're operating, And that if you plant a certain thing, as the song says, for when we get to doing off-Broadway musical numbers, plant a radish, get a radish. Plant a radish, get a radish. You don't plant a radish and get an avocado. You don't plant a radish and get a watermelon. If you do, you look at it and you say, well, there were some other seeds present here. And that, again, is another rabbit hole to go down as to how exactly the creative process works in each and every individual instance. Because sometimes there's what's called the volunteer. There were seeds already in the ground from a previous choice that was made and all like that. But nevertheless, generally speaking, you're going to get a plant that looks like the plant the seed came from. So you plant the seed, and what do you plant the seed in? The soil, and the soil represents the creative medium. And just as we can take Adam and Eve as representations metaphorically, not exactly, but metaphorically, of the conscious and subconscious aspects of mind, so you can take the seed and the soil as representations of the same thing. And the soil is the subconscious medium. Now, how does the soil behave when it's given a seed? Well, it doesn't reject the seed, and it's not even especially overexcited to see the seed. Okay? It's sort of like soil, it just sits there. But it has nutrients and stuff in it. It has a capacity built into it where it can take a seed and build it out and form, and that's what it's really good at. What it's not good at doing, and it's not built to do, again, is evaluating the quality of the seed. It won't hand the seed back to the planter and say, did you really want this? As we've discussed here many times. So it takes it. And yes, there are other metaphysical parts of that story, like where does the sunlight come in and where does the rain come in, but these are necessary components as well. And then in due season. That's another part of the story, in due season. It doesn't immediately present the form. It takes a while. It takes a while. But there it is. And so you can say that when you have the fully mature plant, the plant has broken the ground and it's grown up tall and strong and it's become this ornamental piece of flower, or it's become something you can eat, or you can split the difference and it's an herb. You can season the one with the other. Well, when it comes up and there it presents itself, you can say, job well done. And here yet again is the creative process manifesting itself. So you plant the garden, and in due season you get what you need. Now, where Holmes took this metaphor, of course, is into every kind of creative capacity, into everything that you do. We're constantly planting seeds. And you know who else talked about this was Jesus, when he spoke of the parable of the sower and so on. And you cast some of your seeds onto fertile ground, and you cast some of your seeds onto rock. What could that possibly mean? Well, the rock that you cast the seeds onto is doubt. Not just passing doubt, not just quizzical kind of doubt, but absolute hard-baked conviction of negativity that this will never in a million years happen to me. This will never happen to anybody. And so you throw that well-formed seed out there, and it goes nowhere. It just sits and it kind of dries out on the rock. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to select the area of soil that we put the seeds into. And I believe that what you want to do is you want to till up the soil before you need it for planting. And that means to go to the subconscious mind and develop a relationship with it before we need anything from it. Through meditation and contemplation, before we go to it and we say, okay, I have a long list of things that I want, subconscious mind, so now hear this, as Raymond Barker used to put it, subconscious mind, now hear this, and take this list and go get it. Before we start issuing orders to the subconscious mind, let's get friendly with it like you would with another person. You're not probably going to go up to a random stranger on the street and ask them for a favor, but you will do this. You will do this with friends and family and people that you've cultivated a long-term relationship with. And it's also reciprocal. You develop a relationship with them, and you expect them to ask you when they need something as well, just as you do with them. So we develop a reciprocal relationship with the subconscious mind, realizing that it's not just my subconscious, it's your subconscious. And it's the subconscious of the people driving by in the street right now, and the people flying overhead in the planes right now. There's one universal subjectivity in which we all live. So that's the metaphor of the gardening mechanism. All creation is like gardening in terms of how the seed is planted in the soil and it grows to fruition. All creation. The creation that's going on now, the creation that will be going on in a few minutes or 1,000 years from now. And this is why some of the great teachers of metaphysics say, you've heard of first cause. You've heard of first cause as a function of physics, function of cosmology. All cause is first cause. All cause is first cause. God looked out and said, beheld darkness. Said, let there be light, and there was light. So we're told in the first creation story in Genesis. Again, a metaphor. Well, you and I look out and behold darkness, meaning an absence, a void of something. And we speak our word, and the word resonates throughout all creation. And whatever it takes for that word to be fulfilled, whatever it takes for something to happen, to come into play, to come into focus for us, then begins to. We say, well, now, job well done. Something has been achieved. Something has been accomplished here. So what I want to encourage all of us to do in the coming weeks as we go through this series, talk more about this, delve more into it, is first of all, ask yourself, what could be the garden for you? What could be the soil for you? What is the fertile soil of consciousness to you? What have you already done your work on? What is the land that is kind of already in the family for you, that you already feel to be underfoot and at hand, and that you've run your hands through it, and that you've gotten your fingernails dirty with, you know? What's the garden that you've been tilling in your life all this time that is so ready now for the implantation of this new seed desire, new seed idea of what you wish to have manifest? Then take another look at the seed pack and see the full plant. That's what they'll show you on there, not a seed. Most seeds all look alike. So they'll show you on there the thing that's blooming, or the thing that's, you know, the cucumber or something that's fully represented. And you look at the thing, see what's on that picture, and feel it as though it were present in your life right now. How would it be if I already had this? If I weren't just in the opening stages of this, but I already had this fully manifested in present form for me. And is that all right with you? Is that all right with you? Can you accept that? Can you believe that? Or are you pushing that away from yourself? And if you're pushing that away from yourself, what is it you really want? What is it you really want? And that's where some of the pain of this process will come up. And I can't tell you that it'll be entirely pain-free. Because when we talk about a lost golden age or a wonderful time, that's good news, bad news. The good news is such a thing may have existed. The bad news is it's not here now, and that hurts. Nostalgia hurts. But it's a good hurt. But it's pain. We like it, but when you hear the old songs and you remember the summer of such and such and what you were doing and all, there's a sense of kind of sadness that comes over us. Well, that's part of being human. That's part of being expelled from the garden, if you will, by our own judgments. There's part of us that reaches back to that thing. We want to unknow some things. That's it. We want to unknow some things. If only I didn't know as much as I do now, it would be easier to feel as though the world was perfect. Sadly, I have too much information. What am I going to do about that? I can't really unknow it, but I can go to a place in consciousness where it doesn't intrude. I can kind of create a safe space, a room in mind, in heart, for myself, where I can go, where it doesn't intrude, where nothing's ever been wrong, where everything's always worked out in some way. So was there a time on the face of this earth when such a thing existed? Was there a time before there was a patriarchy? Was there a time before there was a huge capitalist profit motive? And dare I say, and I'm sort of channeling John Lennon here, was there a time before organized religion? You know, when there were all these structures and strictures and demands and all of this separation and all of this fear and all of this stuff. Was there a time of mercy? A time of welcome? And if there wasn't, let us imagine this, then it's high time. There should be. That everything that's happened before is informing us that for such a time as this have we come. Brian, I'll end with this, I guess, probably, maybe. Brian, can't promise you much, but Brian brought up the Olympics as I had last week. cool stuff. I had a whole list. All week I was making lists of stories of stuff to tell you from the Olympics, and it would have eaten all the time I had and all the time you had, and we'd be here into the afternoon. And most of these things you already know if you care, if you're interested. You've been watching it, and I just, go back over it. But one of the things that hit me that has to kind of do with this series is that they were saying, how great it is to be Simone Biles, how great it is to be Katie Ledecky, how great it is to be Leon Marchand, and Julian, what's her last name? Julian Alfred. Did you see Julian Alfred? Okay. Julian Alfred won the 100 meters, I think it was. She's from the island nation of St. Lucia in the Caribbean, which is about the size of El Paso. Has fewer people in it than Montgomery County, Texas. And she became the first medal winner ever from that nation. And there are medal winners from, first-time medal winners from other nations as well. But she completely came out of, she surprised everybody and won this. And they're talking about the party that they're going to have in St. Lucia when her plane lands, coming back. And not to mention the Ukrainian team, and amazing things. But anyway, they were talking about all this. And they said, so to be one of these people and what it took for them to be here, and how great. And I sat there thinking, yeah, all of that is absolutely true. And I also think how cool it is that I got to be on the planet at the same time and got to watch this. Because I will never swim across a pool and break world records. If I make it to the other side of the pool, people will celebrate. If I don't sink and disappear altogether, it'd be like a remarkable thing. I will never run 100 meters in record time. I've never been very fast on my feet. There were all kinds of things. Plus, I haven't trained at all for any of these things. Especially the pommel horse. Oh, for crying out loud. There's all kinds of stuff I can't do, and there's all kinds of stuff you can't do, and the sooner we admit that to ourselves, the happier we are. Either because just our bodies won't let us the way they're conformed right now, or because we haven't put in the time because it hasn't really been that overarching interest. But you know what? You're here for this. You're here for this. You're here for what's going on right now, and you can take it in, and you become part of the experience. Because what those athletes are feeling is the love and respect and admiration and attention that they're being paid by the audience, and guess who that is? And so when you hear the old biblical line, for such a time, I think it's from Ezekiel, but I'm not sure. For such a time as this have I come, or have we come for such a time as this. It doesn't mean to just show up and win the event. It means to show up and witness. Show up and witness what's going on. So we're witnessing together the building of a garden, if you'll have it. If you'll have it. And I think you will. So let's know together now, there is one life, one power, one presence, pure spirit, everywhere manifesting, everywhere radiant in form. And on a beautiful August Sunday morning like this in our part of the world where the heat beats down and the humidity clings to us like a cloak, it is so easy to feel the presence of this one life that knows what it's doing, that has showed up by means of us and everything else in creation. So I affirm and know that there's an optimism in our hearts. There's an opening to trust. There's a welcoming of wonder, of something spectacular coming for us and those we love and for all beings everywhere. There is magic. There is the miraculous. There is the astonishing. And I commit to know more about it and to see it present itself. To find it around the next corner I turn. To see it in the sunrise and the sunset and every moment in between. To see it in the dark of night, the twinkling of the stars. For this knowing, for the way that it takes root in me, garden-like, and grows, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the afternoon sky, into the creative law, knowing it is done, and so it is.
So we appreciate all you do for us. We appreciate your monetary contributions. We appreciate when you come down and help us out here. Everything that you do, whether online or in person, we truly, truly appreciate that. And your monetary donations help us to continue to try and help make this world a much better place. Even though Adam and Eve screwed it up, we're going to actually try and make amends for that, right? Oh, did you ever notice, if you read Genesis, that when God approaches Adam, Adam starts the blame game. He blames Eve. But he also blames God because he says, the woman that you created, she made me do it. And then when God goes to Eve, she blames the snake. So humans have been blaming each other for a long, long time. So now, please relax. Say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
One of my favorite things about this is that I get to come up and then I generally have to follow whatever, oh my goodness. So while I gather my thoughts, Jesse said he was going to tell you his Olympic stories. Well, I have one. Because I spent a good bit of yesterday in watching the Olympics. And then I've watched every night after I get home. And the thing that I am absolutely loving about the Olympics is watching the competitors hug. Whether they are happy, whether they are unhappy, whether they think that they did a great job, whether they are consoling one another or congratulating one another, they are hugging each other. And I mean, did you see the men's Olympic gymnasts team from America? Those boys just lost their minds. It was fantastic. But watching them hug each other and watching like coaches come up and hug other competitors, you know, it's like, hey, you did an amazing job. But and then I was watching one of the races, and I thought the young lady was crying, and I watched one of her teammates come up and hug her. Well, no, it turns out she just won the bronze. So she probably was crying, but in relief. But of watching this global hugging that's going on, because it's across, you know, nations, and they're all hugging each other, and they're all, and it's amazing, and that's the energy that I want. That's the energy that I want to carry with me from this point on. It's like, you know, if you're from another country, I want to hug you. Whether you did an amazing job or whether you tripped and didn't do as good, I want to hug you. I want to hug you. So, and if anybody knows my history, me standing up here telling you that I want to hug you, that's saying something for me. Yeah, if you've known me long enough. It took me a while to get there. So I'm going to invite you to consciously enter the sacred with me. I'm going to remind you that it's all sacred all the time. But what we are doing in these moments is we are consciously entering into that sacred. We are coming into that unity with the one, knowing who we are, knowing that we are beloved expressions of that divine. And we are speaking our word now for what it is that we want to see more of in this world, which I have said today is hugging. And just side note, if you want a real experience, because most of us are right-handed, so if you're left-handed, you can tell me if it's a different experience for you. When we go to hug, we tend to go to the right, so we tend to hug with the right side of our chests. Try doing it the other way. Try hugging and putting your left sides together, where your heart is. Trust me, it is a different experience. For starters, you have to think about it, but then when you are literally heart to heart, it's different. that is different. So, know with me that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. That we are each an expression of that one life. We are living that life. We are expressing that power. We are channeling that love. And it is through us that the most amazing things happen when we remember who we are. And so I'm knowing for each and every one of us as we move through this week, as we enjoy the rest of the Olympics, as we watch them hug and we practice a little bit of our own, that we carry that amazingness with us, that joy in witnessing people doing the most amazing things at the best of their ability, at the top of their game, with the pure joy of the accomplishment of just getting there. And that we carry a little bit of that Snoop Dogg energy with us. That pure, unadulterated joy of being there and supporting them and just reveling in that experience. Your life is worth reveling in. And if you're not seeing the magic, come sit next to me and let me show you the magic. That is our joy for each other. When I forget the magic, I know you see it, and I can see it through your eyes. When you forget the magic, I'll show it to you through mine. And I am grateful for a teaching that reminds me of the magic. It reminds me who I am. And it reminds me to see each and every one of you as the blazing lights that you are, the brilliant sparks of divinity that you are. And I'm grateful for this community where we come together to see the magic. And I am grateful for our ministers, our musicians, our practitioners. I am grateful for each and every one of you. I am grateful for the technology that allows us to spread this to all the people that are watching from around the country, maybe even around the world. And I am grateful because it feels good to be grateful. And so I relax into this knowing and releasing my word with love into the law, knowing that it is done. There's always magic. And so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening within me.
Something wonderful is happening within me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust
I
it.
use it.
I use it.
And I love it.
And I
And
love
so
it.
it is.
And so it is.